Why is it that when we take a loss in trading, it feels like such a personal failure instead of us viewing it as part of the job? As a cognitive behavioral therapist by background and someone who trades, I'm going to explain the psychology behind why a trading loss hits our identity and how you can detach from this so that you can trade with clarity, neutrality, and consistency. What you'll learn in this video comes directly from cognitive and behavioral psychology and is going to be explained in an understandable way and a way that can be applied today. So, losses feel personal because unknowingly, most of us tie our self-worth to our trading results. So, for example, if we take a trade and it turns out to be a winning trade, we think that that is saying something about us. We think that it means that we are a good trader, we're competent. Whilst if we take a trade and it's a loss, we interpret that as also saying something about us. So we'll think that it's a sign of inadequacy, that we're not competent, or you might think I'm not good enough for this. And you might compare yourself negatively against other traders and think, okay, they're always winning, I'm always losing, and we think it's saying something about our self-worth. So instead of the market being this neutral environment, this neutral situation, we've now made it a mirror of our self-worth, because when we take a loss, it's not, we don't interpret it as this is what the market's doing and this is my edge playing out. We interpret it as it's saying something about us as a person. So I just want to use the cognitive model to explain this further. So you have a situation where you have entered a trade and you've taken a loss. And this situation or this trigger leads to certain thoughts that you have. These thoughts influence how you feel and your emotions in that moment. And then your emotions shape your behaviors or what you do in the market. So, for example, if you take a loss, you might have thoughts such as, okay, this means that I can't do this. This is evidence that I'll always be inconsistent. I'm not good enough, right? And you can imagine that if anybody has these thoughts going through their mind, it's going to lead to feelings of shame, frustration, disappointment, sadness, really feeling deflated. And then those emotions will shape your trading decisions or your behavior. So it might lead to rule breaking, over trading, over leveraging, okay? All because of how you are interpreting that loss. You're interpreting that loss as it meaning something about you, as opposed to seeing that loss as part of the job, part of your edge, or it being a probability based loss. And if you're interested in identifying what your triggers are, what your unhelpful thoughts are that are leading to particular emotions and trading decisions in the market, then check out my trading psychology course below, because I have a trigger journal in there which helps you to unpack your unhelpful patterns as a trader in this way. And the fact that a lot of us can interpret losses as being something personal or as it's saying something about us is really understandable, given the fact that most of us grew up with conditional praise. So for example, if we got something right, or if we performed well, or if we'd achieved something, we would be rewarded for that with praise, okay? And so now, if we make a mistake, or if we have a loss in trading, or if something isn't perfect, we interpret that as being maybe dangerous or shameful, or as a sign that we're a failure. So this interpretation of a loss or inaccuracy has been learnt, so it's a really understandable association. But in the trading environment, viewing losses as personal or a sign of inadequacy or incompetence keeps us stuck in the very cycle that we don't want. It causes inconsistency and it becomes this vicious cycle. So we do have to begin to learn alternative ways of viewing a loss so that we can have the outcome that we want as a trader. Another reason we take losses personal is because we expect certainty. So, for example, as a trader, when we enter a trade, we can often expect it to win, okay? So we're expecting it to win and we're expecting to make money. But we have to remember that the market is uncertain. So when we've entered a trade, we still have to be neutral and accept that this trade could win or it could lose based on your edge and the fact that trading is a probability-based game. But when we trade and we enter a trade with the mindset of wanting to be right every time, that creates a lot of pressure. And then the moment that that trade is a losing trade, that is now viewed as being threatening because we weren't expecting that. We were expecting to be right. Okay. Also, this can play out when maybe we've had a winning streak, maybe we've had a few winning trades in a row. So now there's that level of overconfidence. And then the moment we take a loss, there's now a threat. It's not what we were expecting. And now we're almost viewing that as something's wrong with me, I can't really trade, as opposed to remembering that trading is a probability-based game and that loss is a probability-based loss according to your edge. So going back to the cognitive model, when we take a loss and then we interpret that loss as saying something about us as opposed to it being part of the job, it leads to particular emotions and feelings such as frustration, shame, disappointment, which then leads on to particular behaviours. And that's what I want to talk about now. So that's where, if we view a loss as I'm not good enough, I can't do this, I'll always be inconsistent, other people are winning and I'm losing, that's where you then get the over trading. You then get the revenge trading. You're now hesitating when you see your setup because you're worried about taking another loss. You're now skipping entries. Maybe you're now over analysing the chart to try to be certain and increase the likelihood of having a winning trade. Okay? And all of those behaviours are there to try to neutralise the way you've viewed that loss and how it's making you feel. So those behaviours and those trading decisions are no longer strategy based and process focused and based on your trading strategy or rules. It's now emotion led. You're now trying to cancel out that feeling that personal interpretation of the loss has given you. So we've looked at why losses feel personal and how we interpret them, which leads to it feeling like a hit on our identity. And then the unhelpful consequence of taking losses personally, such as overtrading, revenge trading, hesitating, overanalyzing, babysitting trades. Now, what I want to do is go on to give you 6 practical and actionable ways that you can break into this cycle, how you can detach losses from your identity so that you can trade in a more process focused, consistent way. So number 1, you can change the meaning of a loss. Instead of viewing a loss as you being a bad trader, you can view it as a probability-based loss and it's one of a series of many trades that you'll take. 2, track your execution, not the result. So at the end of every trade, ask yourself, did I execute according to my plan? Not, was this a winning trade? You want to reward following your plan, not rewarding an outcome. 3, use cognitive diffusion. This is where you distance yourself from your thought. So the next time you take a loss and you notice that thought coming in of, I'm not good at this, notice that that thought is there. Say, there goes that thought again, that I'm not good at this. Distance creates space. Space gives you time to choose how you're going to respond. 4, you can set up a behavioral experiment. So you can say to yourself, for the next 10 trades, I'm going to measure my success based on whether I followed my rules, not the outcome of the trade. 5, rebuild your trader identity. So you can shift your identity as a trader to a trader who follows their edge, as opposed to a trader who needs to be right. And number 6 is accept uncertainty. So understand that the market is uncertain, and when you take a loss, it's not a mistake necessarily. It's your edge playing out. So if you experiment with any or all of these 6 methods, you're going to notice that you're now starting to chip away at how you interpret losses. It's going to move away from being a personal thing to more, this is just part of the job. And now that the interpretation of losses is different, you're now going to notice that when you're actually trading, you're going to feel different, and your trading decisions or behavior is now going to be different. You're going to notice that when you're trading, you're going to be more steady in terms of your emotions. You're going to be less fearful when you're in a trade, because taking a loss is no longer a personal thing or a bad thing or a sign of danger. You're going to be more neutral when you are in trades, because you've accepted the uncertainty of the market and that it's just part of the game. You're going to now start to see consistency as well, because you're now more process focused as opposed to being emotional, and as opposed to viewing a loss as an attack on your identity. You're now going to be less self-critical. You're going to be less hard on yourself, because it's not about you, it's about the market. And you'll notice that there's less over trading, less revenge trading, and in general you're just going to be way more confident in your edge, because you're now allowing it to play out. So losses are part of the job. Losses are not the problem. It's your interpretation of losses that can be the problem. If you take them personally, it's going to cause you suffering and trading inconsistency. But when you view losses as part of the job, you'll notice that your trading performance will become more consistent. I hope you found this video helpful. For more trading psychology tools, take a look at my description below, where you'll see some more resources which you might find helpful. And if you did like this video, please give it a like and make sure you subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.